All right. Welcome back to another episode of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. I'm your host, Chad Everett Broshears, and this is another of the series of Chat with Chad. And I have my special guest with me, which is Atlas Stout. So, Atlas Stout, say hi to the world.
Thank you for having me on, Chad. I greatly appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Every time we talk, there's always a lot of good chat and good depth that we don't find too often in normal conversations. So I look forward to this.
Yeah, hey, the same here. It's every time I talk to you, it seems like it's so incredibly in depth. The last one that we recorded, which was actually your podcast, back in 2014, I believe, or 13, which
Yeah.
was Stuck on Happy. Oh,
Yeah.
that was a fun subject.
Yeah, it was.
Not today's subject, but it was a
Yep.
fun one. So you and I both having involvement in the fitness industry, and you from the different dynamic positions that you've held in it, um, we've kind of come to a bonding when it comes to fitness,
Hmm.
beyond just the personal, but also professional appreciation as well. So that's kind of a subject that I'd like to kind of get into a bit with you today. Uh, and you did mention you have a subject you want to really give a different perspective on that I think
Sure.
a lot of people would really value.
Yeah, it's not just a perspective that I want to give. I'm very, very interested in your perspective of it as well. And it's really like the idea of it is, what does fitness look like today? Now, we don't want to take all of our conversation up just on fitness itself, but I'm interested in your perspective as well. What does fitness look like today? And what I mean by that is, traditionally we think of it as going in the gym, doing bodybuilder type workouts like Arnold Schwarzenegger, da 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 da. And fitness is really stuck within those four walls. Whether that's good, whether that's bad, whatever it is, it's what we think of as normal fitness. However, in this day and age, is it really transferable? Is it really as, I don't want to say is it as good as we think it is, because I don't want to down it. It's not that it's a bad thing.
Mm,
However, there's more to fitness as a whole, in my perspective, than just between those four walls of either a CrossFit box or a big box gym or whatever the case may be.
mm.
So
Yeah,
that's
the
a
popular
that's a
trend.
subject I'd like to approach. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, now we
absolutely.
see we see a lot more movement becoming a thing. We see flow being talked about more, which I like a lot. I'm noticing a lot of people using hammers and awkward objects, Indian clubs, things of that nature, to find more flow in their body and in their movement. So I would like to see personally that becoming a thing for everybody. Now, for some people, obviously, they like their gym, they like what they're doing. Fantastic. I love it. However, if we could add more, once again, I'm going to say the word flow, into our warm-ups or into our cool downs or into our active rests, things of that nature, or even into just something to get your energy out before you go on about your day. The more we can get that in tune with our body, I think the
Mm,
more result we'll find from our efforts in the actual gym. Does that make
yeah.
sense to you?
Oh, completely. Completely. You know what comes to mind with this, Atlas, is one thing that really comes to mind is so Paul Chek is one of the individuals that I followed for some time, and I still really greatly appreciate his work. And he had asked a question in one of his lectures: "What exercise is the best exercise on the planet?" So, what is the best exercise? And the catch is that it's a trick question, as the answer is the exercise you'll do regularly.
Yes.
Oh, and the other thing that comes to mind is we have gotten so kind of almost distilled into this idea of what fitness is and what wellness is, and collapsing wellness and fitness into the same category. Although I wouldn't say they're separate categories. I think they're just kind of not pursued or viewed as a bigger picture concept. And it's almost like if you're a bodybuilder, you must be well. That kind of mentality.
Right.
And machines sell a lot, and like you said, it's, if it works for people, the big box gyms, that kind of thing. But what's come to my mind is popularity. What kind of like what kind of fads, if you will, or not call it fads, let's say just what kind of movements have we seen in the exercise industry, in the fitness industry?
Mm.
Now, we've seen CrossFit become a big thing. We've seen like companies like Orange Theory really come to
Hmm.
life and develop like this major following. And what I find is missing a lot of times is bonding. Like there's little to no camaraderie amongst other people. Like you go to the gym, you may say hey to somebody you either like as a person or find attractive, or something about them that just kind of stands out to you, or it's a pleasantry. But you also have these other ones that like, hey, I didn't see you today. Where were you?
Right.
Like one of them that you did was the men's fitness. I
Yep.
can't tell you how much I admired that. Oh, like it's a bonding thing. Oh,
It is. It totally is, and especially for men, but for anybody, it's necessary to have those people around you, where you're like, you'll be kind of dogging yourself a little bit, and you could go a little bit longer, but whatever. But no, that person next to you is going, no, wait a minute, you got to keep going. You've got to keep going, and you're totally right. It's the camaraderie outside of like CrossFit communities are very close, and there are other communities that are very, very close, like Wolfpack Fitness up in Maine for one, very, very close community. But for the most part, we've lost that touch, because if you think about it, in the old days, the old days, before machines, before barbells, before anything of that nature, all we had to work out with was rocks, sticks, trees, logs, chains,
mm,
each other, things of that nature. So you actually had to be creative with people around you to be able to work out, because it was a bit more unsafe with working out in nature with rocks and such. But also, to get to the actual exercise itself wasn't always something you could do alone. Like to
mm,
get underneath a big rock and press it, you could do it alone, but you're putting yourself in grave danger. So you had other people around you to lift up the rock or whatever it may be, handed down to you, much like a spotter would with a bench press today. But back then it was much more necessary, rather than just, help me off the bar and just make sure I get the last rep. It was much more dangerous.
yeah. You
So
know,
without people next to us pushing us along and helping us be better, you know, our results are going to be limited.
I'd like to throw in also kind of what's coming to mind is why, an evolutionary perspective, would we be driven to exercise in the first place?
Hmm.
And like you're saying, it's like there's a lot of primal patterns. There's a lot of primal movements. Like just walking itself. But then you have lunging, you have squatting. Yeah, there's the pull ups, those kind of things. They fall into primal matters or primal patterns.
Hmm.
But why would even our ancestors want to condition their body in such a way? And I think the answer is kind of clear. At
Right.
least for me, it's really clear. It's survival, proficiency. Uh, it's you even as we age, we've got to continue. Otherwise, we become a dependent. And in those types of groups, dependents, they weren't exactly they didn't do as well. You know,
Right. Hmm.
and you didn't want to be a dependent anyway because it made you feel like you were a drain on the system or on the group.
Right.
Oh, but also it's if you go turn of the century, like early 1900s, if you go to the gyms, they were gymnasiums. We just shortened the name, and it wasn't machines. Machines weren't even they didn't even come around until either late 60s or early 70s. With Nautilus was one of the first makes, and we didn't really like they came in on the scene for bodybuilding concepts. But prior to
Hmm.
that, everybody that did anything, especially like the old school bodybuilders, you look in the pictures and you're just like, wow, that person has amazing physique. They're not overly large. They're not, it's not bulbous, crazy sized muscles that look almost inflated. Like they were powerful people
Right.
because they lifted in a functional pattern. But
It makes me laugh when I think of the old-fashioned power lifters. I think that's something that gets lost when we think of useful, realistic exercise and fitness today. The old-fashioned power lifters who used to travel around and challenge the town's strongest man would, instead of showing up being like, hey, I can squat 600 pounds and I can deadlift 800 pounds and I can bench 350, blah, 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 blah. It was, it was, I will lift your largest horse with 3 women of your choosing on its back. And da 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 da. And that's what it was. It was, they didn't have weights specifically. They just had stuff to move. And that was how they got that. There's a big difference if you look at bodybuilders. And when I say bodybuilders, I'm not talking about like Ronnie Coleman and those guys who are just absolutely huge Olympic, Mr. Olympia types. Like normal bodybuilders, someone you would think of maybe does a little juice, but a big person. there's something different between them and how they look, even if they look really, really good, and the old time lifters who just had that density that you could see in them. And it was like almost even throughout their whole body. And then they just had some muscle on top of that. Instead of just being gargantuan guys, they were dense and they were thick and they were connected, because the way that they worked out, you couldn't really isolate as easily as today with the machines and all that stuff. So they just had to be brutes of men and just lift and move things.
Yeah. You
So
know,
then,
oh,
if I may, those people who were that strong could then go about life in whatever it is that they were doing with great strength that was useful, because the lifts that they were doing were
mhm,
lifts that anybody could do. Now, once again, if you're a bodybuilder, if you're a power lifter, just using barbells, whatever, fantastic. Not putting it down at all.
yeah.
When it comes to the greater, bigger picture of just normal everyday fitness, just for people, we need to look for the old fashioned ways more so than
Mhm.
the new ways.
Yeah. You know, it's so what comes to mind, and also for anybody who's listening as well or that's tuned in, I it may sound like we may have picked on a little bit bodybuilders. It's
Yeah,
not.
not at
That's
all.
just because it's what's popular. It's fitness fits for whomever and everyone. It's just finding what works best for you.
Right.
You know, you could be yoga. You could do. It could be a very low intensity type of exercise protocol that you do, just like I earlier mentioned statement about our question, which is the best exercise in the world,
Hmm.
by Paul Chek. That question. Uh, we're not picking on any of those people. It's just they're so popular, and that seems to be what sits on the forefront of people's thinking. You
Right.
know, they think of, you know, like, well, women with their fear about looking masculine if they exercise.
I
You
hate
have to
that.
work. It's
Oh,
you have to work specifically for that. You
right.
know, men work and do exercises that are designed specifically like the guys that have that type of build. If women pursue that exact workout regimen, they do the same types of things overall, whether the strength differences are there or not, they're conditioning those muscles to look that way. So just lifting weights is not going to make you look that way. You have to work specifically in that direction. And even
Right.
then, without drugs is not easy. Now, I do say that you do see a good degree of CrossFit women that have a little bit more of that build. I would not accuse them of drugs. Their workout protocols are
Yeah.
designed in such a way to make
Yeah.
their body look that way. But that's not exercise as a whole. That's exercise through a CrossFit methodology.
And hey,
So,
if you want to go that way, woman or not, please do.
yep.
Please do.
Yeah,
Mus-
it's your
if you're
life.
listen to
Leave
me,
it.
listen to me. I don't know. I at least with the guys that I know and that I talk to, muscular women are hot. It's freaking hot. It's hot because A, you know how much work it takes to actually be that way. But I don't understand. I don't understand why it's a societal thing where it's, oh, you shouldn't lift weights. You're going to be too bulky. Guys like skinny girls. I don't really think that that's the case. I know it's not for me personally, but with everybody that I know, the guys that I've talked to about it, that's not the case. So women, please, please lift all the weights you want. Please.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like it's your life. Like live it how you want to.
Just do it.
Whatever brings you
What
the greatest sense of satisfaction, just try not to hurt people as
in
much as you
whatever
can.
way.
Yeah.
This actually ties back to what we started with what does the face of fitness look like? And we were saying it sounds like we might be picking on bodybuilders or people who like doing things like that, and we're not. But tying it back is that is essentially somewhat still, it's changing now, but somewhat still the face of fitness, where if somebody, if I go up to somebody and I say, hey, do you work out, and they do yoga or they like to run a little bit or they like to go swimming or whatever, they'll probably say no, because when they say, hey, do you work out, that means, are you in the gym, are you lifting weights, are you doing those types of workouts? So with that, what could the face of fitness look like? And I'll even deepen that question, is it possible to have a face of fitness where if the best workout is the workout that you do that works for you, is it possible to have a face of fitness?
Yeah.
Do you
It's
think it, do you think that's
absolutely.
possible?
It's yeah, completely. No, it is whatever is the method that keeps you moving. Oh,
Hmm.
as sedentary death syndrome is actually a real condition. And, it does set in when people are sedentary. Now, does it mean that it sets in immediately? No, it takes time to get to that stage, but it is a condition. So we don't want to sit sedentary for too long. Also, for anybody who thinks that they would love to be lazy all day, you may be exhausted and you do need the rest and your body's crying for rest, but try being like not doing anything at all for days on end. Now,
Mm.
like COVID, the whole shutdown could be a great example for people that went stir crazy. You had all the opportunity in the world to just sit and do nothing for a lot of people. And that is, you could say, is a classification. If you didn't exercise, you didn't do anything at all, was it easy to do? Uh, I can't tell you how often people tell me I'm just lazy. Well, whenever somebody tells me that I'm just lazy, is they haven't found the right face of fitness for themselves. Uh,
Yes.
and that's a procrastination. I put effort in the past. It did not come to fruition. So therefore it doesn't work. My efforts are in vain. I'm not doing it again. That's procrastination in a layperson definition, or what they're saying underneath it. The reality is you didn't try it. You didn't do the methodology that works best for you.
Right.
So
I got to say, and it takes some balls to be able to get out there, because obviously, if you're not searching this on your own and you need some motivation and all that, like most of us do, it's going to take some gusto to get out of your comfort zone and go either into a gym or a yoga class or whatever. Even just the first time to do it, to find out if you like it or not. And if you don't really work out much, or you haven't worked out much, or maybe like you said, you just tried, like you were saying, Chad, you just tried. You had a trainer for a week. You didn't like what it was, so that was it. And getting out of your comfort zone is very, very difficult. Getting out of your comfort zone, I'm sorry, again, to try another type of fitness, and then getting out of your comfort zone again to trying another one is even harder and even harder. It gets easier the more you do, but it's hard to do. So to find your own face of fitness of what that means for you, it's going to take some bravery, if you will, to try different types, to try different ways to find out what you like. Because if you've never done anything, you might not know that you absolutely love boxing workouts, or you might not have any clue that you love yoga, and you actually do like some powerlifting too, but yoga is where you really, what you really like and what you want to put your energy into, da 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 da. So you have to figure it out for yourself, and it's going to take a little bit of bravery.
yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's a great choice of words too, because it does in its own sense, turns into bravery, opening the door, admitting that you're there, and admitting that you're going to come to that class without having that familiarity can definitely be an act of courage whenever, you may feel a sense of fear. Oh, but it's one of those things you do have to try things. You may like you mixed martial arts. So you may like, I like a particular martial art overall.
Hmm.
It could be anything as far as like, hell, you could work out and have fitness through gardening.
Sure.
As you mentioned before about like stone lifting and things like that. It's, that's one of the pastimes for one of my favorite mentors. He lifts stones, stacks them, only
Hmm.
to change the pile and stack them to another set the next day. you know, and it seems ludicrous, but it's not. I believe it was, oh, Aristotle, I believe, that said, if you can't move, you can't think, and made all of his philosophy students practice Greco wrestling. Now,
I like it.
it was a requirement. He didn't let them just sit around and discuss philosophy, because he knew that putting challenges into their life, not just the mental challenges, which is part of the face of fitness, is also mental exercises, mental health. I'll get onto this subject in a second as far as mental health and stress relation in the gym, but it's a part of the whole. Like my education is a holistic education in this. It is looking at more than just the musculoskeletal system. It's the psychology of it. It's the mental health of it. It's the visceral system and its functions. But it's finding what fits you best is really the major key, which is the face of fitness for you. It's so individualized.
Hmm.
So to touch on the piece before I lose it here is the relationship between exercise and mental health when it comes to using exercise as stress management. So a lot of people, they don't have the conflict resolution skills. People that lack conflict resolution skills are more prone to ruminating. And ruminating is going over situations that you have not had a conclusion to. And it's
Wow.
making it continuously meaningful to you, even though the other person may not be there. It's what you catch when people are talking to themselves, and going over something. You can just hear them in the middle of an argument, but they're by themselves. Doesn't mean that they're in that stage of, really deep diagnosable mental illness. It could just be that they're ruminating out loud. No, they're, yeah. So when people take that to the exercise environment, you can get a sensation of relief, because when you're stressing, cortisol increases, which is a stress hormone. It's actually not a bad hormone when it's in balance. It's also stimulated through caffeine and other types of stressors, environment, those kind of things. And it's conjoined with testosterone and the waking element of getting up in the morning and getting moving. Your highest degree of naturally produced cortisol is going to be the first thing in the morning, getting you out of bed, breaking the circadian rhythm from evening sleep, nocturnal, into daylight. You get a big flush of that, but it's still in a healthy balance overall, so long as the rest of you are healthy. But when you take this to the gym and you're like, you know what, that so-and-so did X, Y, and Z, and then you're like, one more rep, you can get the positive result of getting your body to start showing change over time, but you're also creating a mental pattern of thinking through neuroplasticity, so that you're making that more of a habit of thinking versus a moment of thinking. But it also comes accustomed with cortisol, but with that, endorphins get released. So because of the exercise effort. And from the exercise effort, we feel better. We feel like we have a medicine against the stress. We're not creating conflict resolution. We're creating conflict suppression. Conflict suppression is something like holding a bobber underwater. It will not go away. It waits for you to lose your guard over it to hold it under. Then it comes up. And you can only do that so long before the subconscious mind hijacks the situation, and then you become a bit more of a jerk. So sorry for the long-winded exploration, but
I liked it.
yeah.
So let's widen it to what you were saying, where just starting in the morning, doing a workout in one way or another, or moving. Let's say moving. Not we don't even have to classify it as working out. Just say moving. For those listening who don't want to go to a gym, can't go to a gym, can't afford it, use things like cinder blocks, buckets with some weight in it. You can put sand in a bucket or dirt, whatever. Get weights. Just get weight. Don't worry about it being weights with a S on the end, meaning like numbers on the side of the dumbbell and things made to be gripped by the human hand and all that stuff. Get weight. Just get things like an old-fashioned power lifter would, or an old-fashioned lifter would, and just move that, because the result is going to be the same. If you're going to the gym and you're working out and you're moving barbells or dumbbells or whatever, fantastic. If you're moving cinder blocks or any of that stuff outside, you're going to get the same result. The body's going to work very similarly.
And something to add a visual to that, because it is one of the things that people think, because they fall into whatever they're most conditioned to most recently, like the popularity of going to a gym. I can't work out unless I have a padded seat, and though I can hear the clink of the weights. I've followed you for some time, Atlas, on your Instagram channel, as well as some of your Facebook things, and seeing the types of exercises that you do, it may be discredited because people don't take into consideration what it's like to swing a sledgehammer. They don't understand what the repetition of that against a tire will do to their body, what kind of true workout it is, the lifting of weights without like lifting multiple different types of things, even if it looks like a smaller weight, but the plane of movement you put it in. If for me, I look at it as a professional myself in this and go, that is powerful. That is strength, and that's raw strength. That's not, he moved 400 pounds on the bench, not knocking those guys, but watching the things that you do and the type of exercises that people do in that type of a mental awareness is unbelievably fascinating. Like the Thor's hammer challenge with the Olympic bar.
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
and then I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, but it is that to me is where where I become impressed. It's not fixed plane movement.
Let me touch on that. That's one of the harder things that I have getting across to people, is how difficult it actually is. And it sounds, because I'm using just a 6 or an 8 pound hammer, sometimes 10, sometimes 16 if I want to go really heavy. But even at 16 pounds, that doesn't sound like much at all. And realistically, it's not that much. So it's difficult to get across to people without them actually doing it, how that low weight can be very, very difficult. But it's one of those things that when you're actually doing it and you're under the weight or you're trying the movement, whatever the case may be, it's so awkward and different. And you're moving this weight at speed on the, like for a sledgehammer specifically, you're moving 8 or 6 pounds at the end of a 3 foot handle. So it starts to weigh a lot more and it gets tiring very, very quickly, especially since it puts your body into positions where it needs to recruit muscles that don't normally get recruited.
Mm-hmm.
We live a very, very easy life. It's very easy. It's the easiest humans have ever lived realistically.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to worry about predators. We don't even have to worry about food. We don't have to worry about anything. So with that, we've become soft in a sense. And we can live our life sitting on the couch. Now with Amazon delivery and blah, 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 and all this stuff, it's only getting easier and easier to not be in shape. It's easy to be in shape and make the right decisions for your health, but it's easier not to. So
Mm-hmm.
people don't. But the hardest part is trying to get somebody to understand how something is easier than they think it is, easier than they think it is because they've convinced themselves that it's really hard. Or in this case, when it comes to the workouts that I do, convincing them that it's actually really difficult because it looks very easy and it sounds very easy. You just swing a sledgehammer a couple of times. It sounds simple, but it's really, really difficult.
Yeah. Well, that's also because people are coming from the idea of like, okay, well, I've moved, I had a 180-pound bench, and he's doing a 16-pound sledgehammer. People don't understand, like lever arms and things like that to what it really equates to in the physics.
Right.
So it's a dismissal. My father did that to me, by the way. It was fascinating. I was, 17 years old, and man, I was all day long just I thought I was as strong as could be, right? Not like the strongest person in the world, but strong for me. And my father asked me if I could take this. It was I think a 10-pound sledgehammer and hold it at the very end of the handle, so at the bottom of the handle furthest away from the head of the hammer, and go from having it all the way extended with my arm straight out in front of me and bring it to my nose without smashing myself in the face.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was so sure of myself as I was all about the Arnold Schwarzenegger mentality, massive arms, and just being this, strong guy. And the reality is, as soon as I went to bring it and I was within 2 inches of my nose, and I realized I had just passed the peak of my strength, and everything from that second, from that centimeter, was going to be an acceleration of failure. And it was that moment I was incredibly humbled. And to this
Yep.
day, I turned 41 in less than a month. I still remember that as if it was yesterday because it was one of those amazing and humbling moments. We can train through exercise just like people use for discipline in martial arts. Where, like, if you've ever gone through martial arts for some time, you realize the dedication and the discipline that you have to put into it with a good sensei teaches you life lessons that you'll always revert back to. You don't just learn
Mm-hmm.
confidence and ability to protect yourself. You also learn other things like due diligence, persistence, you know,
Discipline.
yes, discipline. That was what my father taught me with that exercise.
Yep.
And the type of exercise you're talking about, it's incredibly humbling. Because it does teach you something. You're a big guy. And for you to grab the weights that you do and move them the way you move them, I'm like, that is not easy. Even though it looks like it on the surface because you just assume the weight. No.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
No, but anyway,
It's the little things. It's, exercise, especially exercising this way, is a very good analogy of life where, let's say, for example, one of the things I like to do is I'll throw a couple of cinder blocks down, lay them flat on the ground, and then that'll use that as a bench. And then I'll have another couple of 30-pound cinder blocks on a metal post, and then that'll use that as my bench. So realistically, it's only 60 pounds, which is nothing. An Olympic bar itself is just 45 pounds. So realistically, I'm not doing much more than an Olympic bar, all things considered. However, since it's 30-pound cinder blocks just hanging on the bar, they start swaying a little bit. It's not drastic. It's not huge. Like if you're just sitting there looking at it, you might be able to see a little bit of movement, but it's not obviously swinging enough so the eye can see this drastic movement. But when you're under the weight in your forearms, in your shoulders, everything, those little movements go all the way back through your whole body, all the way down to your feet where you're basing yourself out. And as you're moving that 60 pounds with that little extra additive to it, it tires you out so quickly. Everybody I've put under cinder blocks, I've put less than half the weight that they usually do. And it's usually, they can only do half the amount of reps because it's so different with just that one little thing.
Yeah. People don't realize the neurological cost of activating through the connective tissue, putting the entire connective chain online versus
Mm-hmm.
sitting down in the machine that stabilizes your joints and helps you keep yourself in a fixed plane of movement to isolate a muscle. And then you devote all of your neurological energy into that one muscle grouping or the couple of muscles versus what you're talking about, which is a mass recruitment. You get motor neuron overload like crazy because
Right.
you are. Oh, and I want to apologize to anybody who's checked in because most of the time when I don't talk this technically or using this much technical lingo and the the recordings, but with this, it's a great thing because it's like exploring with somebody like Atlas Stout is it really brings such a deeper understanding to what's going on with the
Okay.
body. So
It's one of the interesting things that I like about it is you can see it in their face after somebody who hasn't done certain kinds of exercises, like you said, it causes the brain to dump certain chemicals because you're needing it to recruit certain muscles that it's not used to. So all of these things are happening to a person and they're not used to it. So it's such a foreign feeling. You can see it's not confusion in their face, but you can see that there's stuff going on inside of their brain and it's reacting in certain ways with their body that they might either have never had before or not had much experience with. So you can see it right in their eyes as they're trying to learn this thing. It's something that I think back in the day when we all had to work on a farm or technology wasn't anywhere close to what it is today, we had to use our bodies much more when we were younger. So those were experiences that we had a lot when we were young and we would grow into being adults, being well versed in that feeling. But now, since we don't have to do too much, I've seen people 40s and 50s through all their 30s, whatever, where they've never really worked out ever. So they're getting this thing happening in their brain that for 45 years of their life they've never experienced, and now almost like a child in a sense, they're like, whoa, this is what's going on.
you know what I
It's
love.
an interesting thing to see.
Oh, I absolutely. You know, one of the things that I'll compliment that with too is it absolutely is. I've had to do a lot of movement pattern deviation corrections. So it's just retraining the nervous system and using certain exercises that really challenge the nervous system in such a way that it has to come online at a high level is like you're saying, it's like you can see that the person reacts immediately with this sense of it seems like it borderlines or straddles the idea of confusion, concern, and alertness. It's like this immediate combination of those three things at the same time. And it's just because the body says, I don't know if I can make it through this exercise. It doesn't, your nervous system doesn't know you're going to be over, a metal bar and you have cinder blocks, that you're using as a resistance. It just knows that your body is navigating gravity in such a way that you're not balanced, you're destabilized, you're in the horizontal position,
Hmm.
and then you have this pressure that's against the shoulders that's coming down towards the chest. And as far as the nervous system is concerned, whatever's coming towards the chest that your arms are failing to control is likely to take your life. And the
Hmm.
nervous system doesn't have the brain necessarily to understand it. It just has the sensory input to say, oh crap, I need to put focus here. And it
Hmm.
recruits so deeply. If you want to see a hell of a lot of a caloric burn, if you want to see toning and real strength and functionality coming out, that is one of the methodologies or the modalities of exercise that I absolutely would encourage people to find a professional like yourself to learn more about it, feel what we're talking about, not
Hmm.
just hear it, not just just cognitively understand it or conceptualize it, get into it, feel it.
Right.
So everybody knows eat less, move more, you lose weight, you build muscle, right? Is the whole idea of it. It's a
Hmm.
real simplification of a true formula. And it's not necessarily always true. And actually, it's probably just a little over half the time it's true. Um,
I'll, I'll
Go ahead.
tie back. I'll tie back what you were saying. Like, when you were just describing being underneath the weight and your body doesn't know what's going on, essentially because you're new to it. That's another tie back to what we were talking about earlier about being brave and having bravery, because those moments where you're fine, you're in the gym, everything's good, you've gotten past the societal awkwardness and all that stuff. Now you're at the bench, you're actually there. Now you're underneath the weight. That's another kind of bravery that you have to push through, because it's going to bring stuff up. You have stuff hidden in your body, you have things hidden in your mind, you have stuff hidden all over the place in you. So as you're stressing certain things you're not used to stressing, as you're activating certain things that aren't used to being activated, you're going to also be activating subconscious memories, da 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 da. And of course, it's not always drastic. Like you're gonna have to face your deepest fear every workout, but there will be times where you are going to have to be present enough and mental enough to not let yourself get lost in your head
Mm-hmm.
and let whatever pops up take you away. And it's happened to me. I know it's happened to you. It's happened to everybody who works out. You lose that focus, you lose where you are because something activates in your head and then it just takes over.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of people get injured, but online, when I see a lot of people doing lifts that get injured, I can almost see in their face and in their eyes that something takes them away just for a second. Their eyes will twitch one direction or the other, and then they've lost that focus. And if they're in a heavy lift that puts their body in a compromised position, then it's very likely that something could be injured. But even if you're just making a regular lift, I've seen people fail just regular normal lifts too, just because their mind takes them right out of it. So that's another form of bravery that fitness takes.
Yeah.
Maybe,
That's,
maybe there isn't a face to fitness, but maybe we're coming up with characteristics of fitness.
yeah. Well, I mean, the face would be what the person wears and let them have, like that's your face now.
Sure.
It can change later, but absolutely, there's so many different characteristics and so many different characters to it. I was thinking as we're going over, like when your focus shifts, they say that you use like you don't use 100% of your brain. You've heard that, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we now know through neuroscience, as you know, I've studied psychology quite a bit, and also I'm fascinated by neuroscience. Uh, we actually use 100% of our brain. We just don't use it all at once. We use it up to about 10%. It's between 7 to 10% was the last that I read about it, where that's how much we will fire at one time because of the total requirement, the total energy, the resource requirements in order to fire 100% of your brain at one time would leave you completely glucose depleted in the brain, that
Hmm.
you would end up having, the potential of a short-term coma or something like that. Um,
Hmm.
what happens
Makes
is
perfect sense.
the main fuel source, and this is where people get into these fads of nutrition and they get lost in the ideas that they have about nutrition, because everybody wants to set it and forget it mentality, or not everybody, let me take that back, it's a little hyperbolic. A lot of people, in my experience, are looking for the set it and forget it mentality and focus somewhere else and just get their basic exercises in and have the body they want and be ready for Instagram hero poses and things. But um, we use up to 70% of our daily carbohydrate requirements are used for the brain as a basal metabolic requirement. That's up to 70% of the carbs. And that's by firing up to your total amount of potential at one given time. So as we're sitting here to tie that into the focus element, as soon as somebody fires and let's say they look to one direction, they send attention, their ocular nerve obviously is getting activated. And that's going to draw some of the percentage off of your, the, was it soma? No, it's not soma. Damn it. I apologize. It's
That's right.
the portion of the brain, it's the nervous system portion that is responsible for motor movement. So somatic, I believe it's somatic. I'll get back to that. So it gets to that portion and that's what's actually getting a major portion of that attention, the brain activity. And if you go into a memory that brings up emotional values, you're now reducing the brain's functional potential by putting it in the different directions. And therefore you're going to have a potential down regulation of force that's taking place through that movement that you're actually going on, that the weight that you're under, because the body has shifted its brain function into another direction. Kind of like turning the lights off, but you're not ready to walk through the room yet. And I appreciate you letting me explore that thought, because it's a rather wonderfully rewarding one. But yeah, so
Yeah,
as
I'm
far
glad
as
you
putting
did.
a focus on it, yeah. It's just, that's what I hear a lot. People do say that. They're like, oh, the limitless potential. You've seen the movie Limitless. We've seen,
Hmm.
there's also the movie Lucy, I believe that's the name of it,
Yep.
where they tap in and she's using 100% of her brain and all of this. Most people don't understand physiology or how, like, what the body actually uses. Hell, most people aren't even familiar with, as soon as you get on like any cardio equipment, you put in your body weight, your age, some ask for height, not all do. And actually, I think we moved away from that quite a bit. But we have age and weight. And then you do your exercise. And then if you're monitoring your heart rate, it gives it another variable. And at the end, you're like, I burned 400 calories on my cardio today. The reality is you probably burnt about 100 calories. The other 300 was your basal rate. That means that's how many calories you would have burned even if you didn't do it.
Right.
So
I got you. Yep. Yep. Yep.
the payback at the end is when the body's recovering itself, and then the more muscle mass you add, or the more lean muscle mass you add, that increases your basal rate. And that's what's going to give you the weight
Mm.
loss in the long run. But if you do just steady state cardio for a long time, you'll reduce that because you reduce lean muscle mass from endurance based. So it's just different things that people don't necessarily understand in fitness. They just do what they do, and then they burn out because they take the wrong modality. And it's
Mm.
not to say it's the wrong end all be all modality. You tried that to exhaustion. You carried over an emotional state that says, I don't want to do that again. Even if you do want to do it again because your frustration levels are high enough, it pushes you past the emotional state of no. And you go into the emotional state of yes through frustration. Frustration won't be indefinite. Whatever the frustrating element is goes away. You lose the weight, your relationship improves, you make more money. Whatever it is that has that frustrating kindling to the fire of frustration, once that drops off, if you don't have something that really continues, you go back to the I don't want to do this again. And now you've gotten into the yo-yo sequence.
Hmm.
So finding modalities like you're speaking about, this, like, they can look at it and say what you're talking about is very masculine and or, kind of rugged. It's not, though. I
Agreed.
highly suggest people try it. Get involved with somebody like Atlas here, and have them bring that out of you. Get it under the right controlled experience and get the full experience out of it, and realize
Yep.
that it's not a guy's game, right? Oh,
Co- Completely agree. It's raw. It's just like you used the word primal earlier, and that's the perfect word for it. It's I, you know, I I feel like saying getting back to the roots would be a cliche term, but realistically, it is just getting back to moving things, throwing things, being able to crawl and move your body, lift stuff at awkward angles, and there's a lot of rewards to it. There are brain chemicals that get released that are very pleasant to feel because you know you earned it. So
mm.
yeah, get into it.
Yeah, that's a major piece, and that's a huge takeaway I hope people get, is the earned it. Oh, if you're trying to get the results in a week, you're likely not going to earn the results you're looking for, because what you're looking for may be a 6-month result, like the results you get out of 6 months of discipline. But if you don't get it in the week and
Right.
you don't understand the distance, you really are going to do well to find a good mentor,
Hmm.
somebody to take you through it, so you have a better and deeper understanding of what progress really is, so you know what earning it really feels like. Oh, yeah, that's a fascinating thing. But your exercises have always inspired me. I am almost completely burnt out of traditional methods. Just because I grew up that way. I've been exercising since fourth grade. Now, ever since the movie Twins.
Yeah, when it comes to the conventional stuff, realistically, there's only so much you can do. There's obviously people who do that stuff and they get a ton out of it, and that's awesome. But for the normal person, the other 99% of people, it's it's going to get old. It's going to get old because it's going to start to hurt. It's no fun. It's going to become a bear, a burden more than a pleasure. So, yeah, finding your face back to the original context, finding your face of fitness and trying out some different stuff will keep you getting over those humps of being like, oh God, this is getting boring, or it's getting monotonous, or it's whatever it is, or it's getting difficult. For example, one of the things that some of the people I talk to a lot are new parents, moms and dads. Obviously, you don't get a lot of sleep, you don't get a lot of free time. The kids take up all the time that you have. So getting yourself, once again, I'll say the basics of cinder blocks and a couple of posts, and if you want to get some light dumbbells or make a couple of medicine balls or make anything realistically, then you get those micro workouts in when the kid naps for a little bit. You can do it right in your backyard or even your living room, whatever. You don't Fitness doesn't have to be done only going to the gym or going to a specific place in certain clothing, doing specific exercises for specific amounts of reps and time and blah 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 blah. It can be done anywhere, freaking anywhere.
You mean I don't have to go get some Lululemon tights and uh,
I mean, I'd encourage you to if you want to, Chad, but you know, but no, yeah. Once again, we say, gave the example earlier of a person who likes yoga and does jogs once or twice a week, and ask them if they work out. They'll say no because they're thinking of it as getting in the gym and lifting weights. It's so far beyond that. It's so far beyond that traditional, quote, traditional way of doing it. I have exactly what I want to say in my mind, but I'm trying to find the words to properly get it across. But it can be incorporated in your daily life using minimal stuff, really minimal stuff. Get a gallon of water. A gallon of water weighs about 8 pounds. Lift that over your head 50 times. See how you feel.
Yeah. I've got a friend of mine. She came up with it was a Fit Mom or something. I forgot now what the name of the company is. Her name's Connie. And I met her at Newport Richie at the Gold's Gym here. It's no longer there anymore, but yeah, she was doing, I think it's Mommy and Me fitness. And she
Sounds
just did
familiar.
it. She brought the kids in, and it's like the mothers with their kids, and then the moms would sit there and just do exercises with their kids, like from babies to toddlers to I mean, I didn't see anybody swinging a kid around with a Game Boy in their hand screaming, "Mom, I'm 12, put me down." But it was fascinating because this is back whenever I was a much younger version of myself, and I was like, I looked at it with such amazement because it just was different to me. Now I'm
Mhm.
like, absolutely, like you're saying, a gallon of milk over your head for 50 reps. It's like, make sure it's milk and not something that might fizz and blow open on you, but still, unless you're really trying to have a celebration for that day and you don't mind cleaning some grannies. But seeing like these people like picking up their kids, and I'm like, you know what? Like, kids aren't light.
Right. And
I've
they're
carried them
awkward.
at the
Yep.
peak of my physical prowess, and I've carried them on my hip, in the full front, like as a hug, on my
hmm
shoulders, you name it. And it's like, it's fascinating if you just open the perspective and see that fitness really is, it's just movement. So,
hmm
and finding the movement that you can align with in such a way mentally that it fits better for you. You can almost say that is fitness, right? Um,
hmm
and then turn it into something that that gives you that sequence of rewards. So my preference is always suggesting to people, what is it that you like doing in your leisure time? If you like going out kayaking, well, guess what? You're working out. So
Hmm.
if you like, wakeboarding, or if you like going out and stand up paddle boarding, or if you like to, go kite surfing, or, hell, golfing is exercise. Now, blood pressure gets up in that game. I would suggest maybe something else that helps with the circulatory system, but still that's outside and it's moving, right?
Yep.
Ditch the cart, walk a little more, carry your bag, that kind of thing.
Agreed. Hmm.
But it's like, just look for opportunities. And that's something that with you, I worked out with you back in 14, I believe. And you're like, hey, all right, you want to work out today? And you took out like, and I'm coming from the gym now. This is after spending 3.5 years in a physical therapy office as a corrective exercise specialist. And I was very well versed in functional exercise, body weight, that kind of thing. And then you bring this stuff out and you're like, here you go. Here's a sledgehammer. Here's this big ass, farm tire, a tractor tire. Now, we're not only going to flip this thing, you're going to beat it up with this hammer. All right, here's your cinder blocks. Now you're going to carry these from point A to point B. And it was such an incredibly rewarding workout. And I felt like we were really getting close to my maximum potential. And I had not felt that in so long. But if you would have
Awesome.
looked at the real work that was done, if you looked at it from the outside, you'd been like, Chad, you got to man up. You got to try harder. Now, and I just didn't want to disappoint you, because I'm like, I'm not letting this guy down. No way. And I'm like, he's like, at that time, you had to at least been 40 pounds heavier than me. Like, I got to show up, man.
Yeah. At 14, I was probably weighing about 220, 225 maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I was about 185 at that time.
Yep.
So yeah.
You said the word too. It's work. Work. We are engineered with however long you believe humans have been around, hundreds of thousands, millions of years, whatever it may be. We've been engineered to work and and get rewarded from that work, because work back then was hunting, gathering, was moving from one place to the next, walking however many miles you needed to get to the next site, run away from a predator, defend your territory from another tribe or whatever the case may be. And there were rewards hidden in all of that movement and output that our ancestors would feel pretty often. And now it's it's optional to get those rewards. And not only is it optional, it's almost like not discouraged, but we're not really encouraged to go work hard and be ourselves, not be ourselves, but to work hard and push yourself to the next level. Now, obviously, there's a lot of campaigns out there saying, go try, go do your hardest, go all that stuff. But realistically, we're getting softer and softer and softer. And the amount of voices who are out there saying work hard and then actually go through with it and encouraging people to work harder and all that is getting less and less and less.
Yeah.
Just my opinion. I could be completely wrong, but I believe that to be the case. And
That's
when
the
you, and like you just said, when we got in there and we flipped the tire, we hit it with a sledgehammer, we walked cinder blocks around, we did these lifts, we did these holds and blah, 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 blah. We were working. We were doing what our ancestors would have to do in order to cross a river or to climb a mountain or to catch prey or to whatever. We were doing work. And then there's that subconscious satisfaction that you get out of it that's difficult to get out of exercise not done in that form. There's a satisfaction that's done with it because you've earned it.
mm,
Getting back to saying earned it earlier.
yeah. It's
It's
such a
a thing of
beautiful
beauty.
word. It is. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful, powerful word.
Hmm.
Something that is coming to mind as well with this, Atlas, is so linguistically, what we've done to work is we've kind of bastardized it. So like you said, it's like when our ancestors had to pursue prey and they had to climb, they had to change, different terrain as they went through the pursuit of the hunt or gathering. Because we do come from an ancestry that are hunter gatherers, they're nomadic. There's a lot of moving overall. By the way, following the nomadic time span of our existence, Jared Diamond has a great documentary called Blood Guns and Steel, Blood Germs and Steel. Fantastic. I love that. Jared Diamond he's a very interesting person. But to my point is, we have, like, back then, work was, the reward to work was surviving. It was, you would become proficient enough to catch prey and or climb high enough to reach the honeycomb, right? Or to get the fruit that was not picked at the lower end because other, tribes people may have taken that fruit that's on the low hanging end. You had to climb for it, whatever it is. Work was the expectation before reward. Now we've got it to the point where work, and then you get this tangible but sometimes intangible credit value for what you can spend it on. And it's changed it. So now we think the only way to create value is through this mental polarity of hard work. Now, that's not necessarily untrue, but what it is it's this almost hijacking of what work is. It puts a polarized concept of work. Before, it was likely, our ancestors likely did not refer to the hunter-gathering and the daily living requirement activities as hard work. They would look at it as work. They didn't add that hard value to it. They didn't have the easy value to it. They would have the it's hard, or they would just have the it's work, because that's not the way you would perceive it. But now we have, you work hard, you can have more, which creates the softening to us and this distancing to the effort inside of work. And it creates this distance between ourselves and this concept of what we now consider success. And the only way to get there is through hard work. The reality is, how you get there is through work. It's up to you if you want to make it hard. Usually hard is indicative of what you don't know or how fast you're trying to get there. Now,
yeah, I'm digesting that. That was wonderful.
oh, thank you. It was one of those, because I can only look at my ancestors' perspective and think there's no way they would have actually put hard work as a title to survival. It would have just been the only option, because when you say hard work, soft work or easy work is an option. It doesn't have the same reward, but our ancestors didn't live in a way that was more that way, from everything that I've learned. So, but from now, it is one of the things. Moshe Feldenkrais is another great author, and he discussed the conversations. Now, this man is long past since passed. I'm sorry, turn a phrase on that. He passed, and I believe it was the 1940s, 1930s. But he wrote on child development. He wrote on a lot of things. He was another holistic thinker, but he predates a lot of the people that I follow nowadays. And he talked about qualifying or putting a concept on the idea of work. So when you tell a child that hard work gets you where you want to be, isn't true. Because when you do that, you create this idea of inequality. Because for people that get there without seeming to be as stressed as you are in the effort, you think that they cheated or somebody gave them a hand up, when they may have all of the necessary skills, that they didn't make the mistakes that you had to make that created this effort value, that the other person didn't make the mistakes because they did the proficiency elements to the success. So they therefore didn't feel the distress of mistake. So the stress was not present as it was for you, and your measurement immediately goes, I stressed this much, they didn't stress this much, and you start taking away work value by saying they didn't work hard, even though that's just their area of proficiency, or it's an area that's closer to their proficiency area or their potency, and it's further from yours. And then you put it on there and say, well, that's hard work. So that's why we have such a disparity. That's the wrong word. Sorry. I'll just say a distance. I'll regret that at like 7 a.m. I'll wake up. I'll get up like Tourette's and scream out the right word and be like, I'm dumb.
That's funny.
Yeah. So Atlas, you and I have always had some of the greatest conversations, and
Agreed.
Our conversations land for me in a very similar way as what I mentioned before about my father giving me the humbling experience of the sledgehammer. Oh,
Awesome.
our conversations seem like they accelerate the concepts and thinking and the exploration of the details and the crevices of thinking. Because where other people would have the, oh, I know what you're talking about, you and I will flesh it out and find out if what we think we know what we're talking about has areas that we didn't explore yet. But if we looked at
Right.
it from the superficial level, we would think bulk value, we understand that we completely where we're at. But the reality is, being that we've have so many different perspectives, so many different elements about human being, how can you verify that what we're talking about is on the same page? It looks like it on the surface. Now, for
Hmm.
you and I, we don't do that. We really do go in and flesh out ideas in such a way we realize there's more to it. There's a different way of looking at it. And I
Right.
appreciate that about you. And that's one of the
I
reasons why I have.
appreciate I appreciate that too. I'm sorry to cut you off there. I appreciate that too, and I feel the same way. And I hope your listeners and anyone who listens to this gets a lot out of it as well.
Yeah, I promise you they will. With guests like you, all of the people that I've had on with Chat with Chad have been amazing dynamic thinkers. And that's one of the things one of the reasons why I even do this in the first place. I am doing it for selfish reasons. Oh, I really want to be able to tap in to some of these people like yourself and have a conversation that helps me expand my own parameters, my own things. Like, there's plenty of people that tell me they think that I'm a genius, and I will tell you right now, I am so far from accepting that as a truth that it almost seems like an insult. Oh, and it's not. I know it's not intended by them. It's a compliment, but I just don't think that way about me. I see me
I
as
get you.
curious.
Yep, I get you.
Um,
Hey, you know something? It's really funny. I laugh about it all the time because it's if you just ask somebody, hey, do you want to sit down and have a conversation for an hour? I'm like, I don't really know. But if you say, hey, do you want to sit down and have a conversation for an hour and put some microphones in front of each other and call it a podcast? They're like, absolutely, sure, let's do it. So I
it's
totally understand, man. And your intellectual curiosity is very inspiring as well to me, as I know it is to other people too, to seek out people who you feel can bring it to the table with conversation, with dialect and things of that nature. And I think we need a lot more of that because the content can only be better. You know what I mean? Can only be, even if people disagree with what we're saying, I'm sure they can come to it in a good in good terms as opposed to just being blanket statement, "Meh, you suck." You know what I mean?
yeah,
So at the very least, it raises the level of either conversation or vibration, whatever you want to call it. So I think
yeah.
it's great, and I'll do this with you anytime, anytime, and I'll have you on my podcast as well.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Oh, I'll share this with you when I do post it on YouTube as well, and I'll see if I can send it over as a format so that you can also publish if you like.
Sure,
Um,
we'll worry
but
about that down the road.
yeah. So now, Atlas, for everything that we've gone over so far, I want to appreciate you for, really putting a different perspective on fitness. It is one that I'm taking away such a great deal of value from it because I work in the industry. I'm not just doing the things that I do like this and like consulting, but I also work in the fitness industry as it is as well. And it's given me a different perspective, and I really appreciate that from you. And I hope that the listeners take that away as well. But is there anything you'd like to add in closing? Anything that, as far as you'd like to throw out audio version of a way of following you? We will add your direct link in the description column on YouTube and a few
Yeah.
other publications.
Sure.
So,
Well, right now it's I've only got Instagram with Atlas_Stout, but eventually a Facebook page is coming, a YouTube channel is coming, a website will be up. So if you're listening to this right now, it's only an Instagram page. If you're listening to it sometime down the road, you'll likely be able to find me at the same name, Atlas Stout, with all of the social media platforms and all that.
oh man. Well, I'll make sure that I also update later on when you do have any of the other ones available, and I'll go back and edit and add it into the description for this one.
I appreciate
Uh,
it.
so for the listeners, I hope that you guys are taking out as much as you want. Revisit this. We did talk about quite a bit. Some of it did get a little far into some of the science of it earlier. So if it's something that you're not that interested in, far as the science, but more of just the overview, you want to skip some parts. But I do suggest go back, listen again. Also, comment in the comment section if you have any questions for myself or Atlas. I'll be happy to make sure he gets those questions when they do pop up, or even the acknowledgments, appreciation, anything at all. We'll happily, kind of bring that up in future videos. And by all means, please, subscribe, hit the bell notification. It helps with the algorithm on this. Share the video with anyone in your life will take something away from it. Also, it may also spark a conversation between you and that other person. With that, again, this is Chad Everett Broshears. I'm the host of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. This is another episode of Chat with Chad, and it's with Atlas Stout. Anything else you'd like to say before we finish up the episode, Atlas?
Nope. Thanks for having me, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure everyone else appreciates you as well. Thank you. All right, enjoy.
All right.